All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the West Wind Report. Today is Friday, March 28th, and we are live from beautiful, beautiful British Columbia. And oh boy, have we had some interesting events happen in the world of Canadian politics. And no matter your race, color, or creed, I think we can all say that Canada is a little bit, if not completely, fucked. And pardon my French, or pardonnez mon français. But for today's episode, I want to look at a graph that's been circulating over the past week online and stuff like that. And Carney essentially threatening the United States, I guess, if you can call it that. And if he can even legally do that, I don't know who voted for this guy. But before we get into that, I just want to say I'd appreciate a follow here on Twitter or X or whatever pronouns you want to give this godforsaken social media site. I'd appreciate a follow because I'm trying to get to triple digits as fast as I can. But without further ado, let's just hop in 2 feet first. So here we have this graph, this lovely, lovely graph. Unfortunately, it's not that lovely. It's rather quite horrifying. It's a graph that shows the growth of GDP for all these countries from 2014 to 2024. And all the way up here, you may have to zoom in, but there's Canada, 0.5%, which is shocking. And when I say Canada is in the toilet, this is the shit it's clogged with. Pardon my French. Like, you just have to look at how far behind we are with everyone. We're at like a 3rd grade reading level compared to everyone else. We're on the short bus. That's how we're rolling in to these world leader events. And if we don't fix this stuff, we're just going to be bought and sold to the highest bidder. And hey, Mark Carney is a hell of an auctioneer. As he's quick to say, he has, all the global connections around the world. We don't understand how the world works, but he does. Maybe to pay back his loan from China, he'll just sell off parts of Canada to them. Whatever parts the Liberals haven't already sold off to foreign regimes. But this is our GDP growth. It's abysmal. And keep in mind, the Liberals came into power in 2016. And this graph starts in, 2014? I wouldn't be surprised if this little bit here is from the last Conservative government. And what this graph represents, obviously it represents our economic growth, but it also represents our at-home manufacturing and infrastructure capabilities, right? Global influence and just respect. We got zilch, zero, nada. Except actually we have this little bit right here. Don't blink, you might miss it. It's just so shocking to me. Right? And then here's the US. All the way down here. And we want to get deeper into a trade war with these guys? I think a trade war, you need resources, which we have, but we have no infrastructure to get, and you need money, which we don't have. Are we just going to print more money? Doesn't make sense to me. And this stagnant growth is just so shocking. And what's crazy about it is Canada is a force of nature, right? I'm talking about the physical landmass. Our country is a natural world phenomenon. We're rich in enormous amounts of natural resources. We're top 3. We're 3rd on the list of largest oil reserves in the world. 30% of our world's forests are in Canada, a plethora of clean water. We've got over, 60 million hectares of farmland and vast landscapes that are rich with elements like fucking nickel, copper, cobalt, uranium, Uranus, whatever. And we simply are just not harvesting it. We're not thanking Mother Nature for her gifts that she's left us and living off the land and investing into Canadians and our own economy and our own country because of bureaucracy and a shady liberal government, man. It's so sad. And to get like a little bit political and kind of explain why this number looks like this, here's the reality. We don't harvest or move our oil, even though we have a surplus of it in the ground. And that could be our big cash grab for our country. And this is mainly due to Bill C-69. Actually, I think it's wholeheartedly due to Bill C-69, the pipeline killer bill. You know, it killed the manufacturing of pipelines in Canada that would move our oil coast to coast and make our country rich, like big time rich. So then that way, Eastern Canada could stop buying conflict oil and get good, clean, ethical oil from our own country. And that bill was signed in by, and it's signed in and supported for 10 years by Trudeau and the Liberal government. And now this Liberal government is being dressed up and trotted out as a new product with Mark Carney at the helm. You know, right? You know the old saying, you can't put lipstick on a pig. And speaking of pigs, our farmland is being bought by, foreign regimes that push out Canadian farmers out of their land and business. And then they just own Canadian soil under our government's nose. You got Bill Gates out there buying farmland. Like, what's that weirdo up to? Like, can we not get an inquiry about this stuff? And also, hang on a minute. Isn't the purchasing of farmland supposed to be regulated by the government? Yeah, it is. It's almost like that's why we pay our taxes and we vote these officials in to take care of this stuff and serve the best interest of Canadians. And to say like the government is naive in this is just such wishful thinking, and the word I would use would be complacent. And you know what's ironic about this graph as well, is we owe money to a fair amount of these people. Like, man, this graph is a sick joke. This is a nightmare, and I hope to wake up soon from this. And I don't see why everyone just isn't plastering this everywhere. I mean, people are, but we can't let this thing die. Because this is it. This is everything. This is Canada's reputation. This is our sovereignty. This is our independence. This is what that little abysmal number represents. That's how free and sovereign Canada is. We can even grow our own economy from the own goods that we produce, even though we have all this stuff in the ground. But now, let's look at our caretaker Prime Minister, Mr. Carney, and what he said today that apparently just has the world a-buzzing. So he walks out and with a straight face announces to the U.S. and I guess to Canadians, our friendly alliance of 157 years is over. It's just done. It's gone. It's over. Point final, as he likes to smugly say. And before we get into it, what Mr. Carney has to say, I would like to ask the question of my fellow 42 million or whatever the number is now Canadians. Who voted for this guy? Did anyone vote for him? Did you vote for him? That? No? Do you know anyone who voted for him? I don't think so. Yeah, oh right. It was a coalition of 151,000 bought and paid for Liberal loyalists who were told who to vote for. Allegedly. Allegedly, of course, allegedly. But I mean, they call you a conspiracy theorist, but they never really call you a liar. Eesh. But anyways, let's hear it from the horse's mouth and see what the carnivore has to say.
Our biggest challenge as a country is becoming the most urgent. Over the coming weeks, months, and years, we must fundamentally reimagine our economy.
I'll pause it there and I'll just say that's the only thing that makes sense that he says.
We will need to ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
Says who? Says who? I don't feel like I'm being very well represented by my government right now in Canada.
What exactly the United States does next is unclear. But what is clear is that we, as Canadians, have agency. We have power. We are masters in our own home. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous. We can control our destiny. We can give ourselves much more than any foreign government, including the United States, can ever take away. We can deal with this crisis best by building our strength right here at home. It will take hard work. It will take steady and focused determination from governments, from businesses, from labor, from Canadians.
Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. And if you want to come out and make these claims and these threats to other countries, and you want to think that you have this authority, so why don't we just open up interprovincial trade? Isn't that what the Team Canada premiers were all about? Making it so we can produce goods in our own country and then ship them across provinces without having to pay insane, different provincial taxes on things. Because it's cheaper for Eastern Canada to get their oil from overseas markets than it is to ship it from Alberta to the Atlantic. But anyways, I digress.
We will need to dramatically reduce our reliance on the United States. We will need to pivot our trade relationships elsewhere. And we will need to do things previously thought impossible at speeds we haven't seen in generations.
Globalists will globalist.
But we can make ourselves more productive and therefore more competitive. We can break down internal trade barriers. We can build a stronger and more resilient economy. And that's what I'm squarely focused on as your Prime Minister.
All right. Our Prime Minister, our PM, the man himself. So that's it, America. How you boys feel about that, huh? You guys shaking in your boots yet? Is your military that's comprised of, 1.5 million troops scared of the big bad Carney and our 63,000 Canadian troops or something like that? A little fun fact, the largest aerial operations or whatever, the largest aerial base is the U.S. Air Force, and the second largest is the U.S. Navy, and that's in the world. The two largest air forces in the world both are owned by the U.S., but hey, we don't need that. We don't need that guy in our corner. Why would we want a prosperous, beneficial relationship with a trade partner that lives on the same continent as us? Damn, I stuttered. Whew. Like, this man is just, his mouth is writing checks his ash cannot cash. Simple as that. And if this is, Mr. Carney here trying to give a thought-provoking, inspirational speech, it falls completely flat. It's not much of a pump-up speech to inspire support from Canadians. That's broken. That's gone. You're never getting that back, Carney. You're never going to get the support of Canadian people. I don't think so. And it's also not much of a menacing threat, right? Doesn't scare the states at all. It's nothing. It's nonsense. It's hubbub. You could get your hair blown dried from just talking to Mr. Carney, because everything that comes out of this dude's mouth is just fucking hot air. And yeah, I'm glad he pointed out that he has to radically change our economy, because refer to graph A, right? To think Canada's economy can stand up to America's, which is debatably the most powerful economy in the world, is just pure lunacy. It's crazy. And also, Marcus Carnival here, right? He's not even speaking to Donald Trump. I think he keeps getting the busy tone when he keeps dialing him, because there's reports coming out from the Donald Trump camp that they don't really want to meet with him. They don't need to meet with him. And I was thinking about that, and I think it's just a respect thing, right? Like when you look at Donald Trump and Mark Carney, and you compare and contrast how they both became world leaders, why would Carney garner any respect? And the same thing happened when, his first day as prime minister, he left Canada and flew to Europe and went to meet the prime minister of the UK and the president of France, and he wanted to do pressers with them, and they both declined. Because they're world leaders. They know what it takes. Like, Trump went to hell and back for that mandate he got. And Carney went to a liberal supper funded by Canadian taxpayers. And Trump was prosecuted, defamed, humiliated. His family was viciously attacked, like constantly. He battled against the raging liberal media ecosystem. He almost died on television, almost got shot in the head live on TV. And then he also almost got shot when he was trying to make his putt for birdie. And what did Mark Carney do? Right? To deserve the respect of 42 million people in Canada, apart from being Trudeau's economic advisor for the last 5 years, where he orchestrated the radical downfall of the Canadian economy, the likes of which have fucking never been seen, apparently. They've never been seen before. And we're all just living in this, looking at Twitter clips talking about it. He was like a worse version of Denzel Washington flying that plane in the movie Flight, but instead of having the savviness and the courage of Denzel when the plane is in a nosedive and he flips it over upside down, flies it upside down, and then lands it without having anyone die, Mark Carney lacks the charisma, the compassion for the Canadian people, the empathy, the vigor, and the courage it takes to be a leader and to pull this plane that's currently in a nosedive out of its nosedive. He can't save the plane. And that just breaks my heart. Because at the end of the day, average Americans don't want this, and sure as shit, average Canadians don't want this. And you see these protests happening in Canada, these anti-Trump protests and these anti-Elon Musk protests, and now Teslas are getting vandalized in Canada. Like, can we just all point to how we got to this point, not because of Trump tariffs. Trump just became the president. We got to this point because of 10 years of liberal governance. And I know I'm getting a little worked up, so I'm going to end it there. What Carney is insinuating here, what he's saying, I don't take it, I take it as nothing, really. He's just trying to appeal to the brainwashed boomers that still watch the CBC. And he's just pissing Trump off. And also, this isn't a good negotiation tactic. So we're just done with negotiations? So what? We're just done professionally? You never even talked to him once, and you want to make that rash of a decision? You want to try to speak for all of us Canadians? I don't think so, buddy. I don't think so, pal. But I'll just end it with my my final closing thoughts here. My prediction still is that the polls are currently a mess, and I think that young Canadians who remember growing up when times weren't so bleak are going to come out in droves and support blue. I think the NDP is going to shrivel up. They've lost so much support, and I think a lot of those working class people, those unions that are now endorsing Pierre Poilievre, so all those NDP voters that usually break towards liberal, I think they're going to start breaking towards conservatives a lot more than liberal. Because I think this has been horrendous. This has been torture. And the younger generation who's kind of grown up in this technological time, we're not easily manipulated, right? We can see all the different angles. Whereas the older generation, they put on cable news and they just take it as gospel, because that's how it was done back in the day. You woke up in the morning, you got your newspaper, right? Then you went to work, you came home, and then the only other news media you consumed was after dinner on the daily news, the nightly news. But things are changing, and I don't think that young people are going to get fooled at all by this. Pierre Poilievre just had a rally in Surrey, BC. There was like 5,000 plus people there. So that's it. That's still going to be my prediction. And I think for just like the heinous, maybe not heinous, but just the absurd acts and the oddity of Carney coming out and thinking that he can speak like this, I'm going to have to give the point for the Conservatives today for who won this day. But anyways, thank you all for watching, listening, and I hope to talk to you again soon.